Alright guys, we've made it to the final week of Genius, a Kanye Trilogy that's now out on Netflix. Now this act is dealing with Kanye West nowadays, and well, Kanye West nowadays is a lot to handle, and there are some things that he says and does that challenges me, so let's get into my thoughts and we'll talk about whether or not this episode ended the documentary on a high note or not. What's going on everyone, James here with another real review, and today we're diving right into Genius, a Kanye Trilogy, which is now streaming on Netflix. This is the final act, the last episode here. Its title is Awakening. Thank you so much to Netflix for giving me the chance to watch this early for review. Now I have been reviewing this 3-week series, so you're going to want to check out all the other reviews right at the top or in the description below. You guys, this is a tough episode to get through, for better and for worse. I mean, boy, there's a lot here to unpack. Now before we get into it, and I'll tell you what worked for me and what didn't really work. If it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I love talking about movies and TV like this all the time, so you're not going to want to miss out. Go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and hit the thumbs up button if you have been a fan of Genius. Now I know a lot of people are talking about this documentary, so let me know down below in the comments which episode was your favorite, 1, 2, or 3. Now if you're unfamiliar with the structure here, again, Act 1 was titled Vision. It's Kanye early in his career. Act 2 is Purpose, where he really breaks out with a college dropout and really starts to hit his stride and really peak in his career. And Act 3 is Awakening, which deals with Kanye West now, his mental health, his bipolar disorder that he does have, and, well, running for president, among many other things. Alrighty guys, so let's start right at the top. This episode opens in New York. It's 2002, and he's having a conversation, Kanye West is, about being a genius with Rhymefest. And in this episode, you're gonna notice that Coodie doesn't always narrate as much as he did in the previous 2 episodes. He's letting a lot of what Kanye's doing speak for itself, and a lot of these frantic montages that we do get in the beginning find their way throughout this hour-and-a-half episode. Maybe it's an hour 50 if I'm not mistaken, but there's a lot here, guys, and sometimes the frantic nature does match the actual material, because Kanye West right now is unfortunately not stable. He is dealing with being bipolar, and his mental health is very fragile right now, so the montages kind of fit the mood of the entire episode. But this also becomes one of the more heartbreaking episodes, because Coodie ends up not being able to film him day to day anymore, and also just doesn't spend so much time with one of his best friends. Once Kanye began to work on Late Registration, there was this notable shift in their friendship, and Coodie does a good job at explaining what went down without it feeling like it is a tilted attack against Kanye. He's more so just saying how he misses his friend, how he understands that sometimes, you know, the friendship was strained, but at this point I think it was probably strained to no return. And it is bittersweet to see that, because you start to see in the beginning of this documentary how they began this journey essentially together, and well, it doesn't seem like it's ending that way. But there were also a lot of very interesting bits of information that Coodie shared with us, that Kanye basically told him that the world wasn't ready to see the real him, and that he's acting now. Not acting in the sense that he's in movies, he's just putting on a different face for the media, for the cameras, because after the success of The College Dropout, you couldn't go to Kanye West and just simply ask him how he's doing without paparazzi being around, and just so many different elements to his life now radically shifted. We start to see Kanye's confidence and ego bleed through everything he's doing all over again, but they do kind of pause at some point and give us a really deeper dive into Donda and Kanye West's relationship. The mother-son dynamic here is really focused on much more than the other 2 episodes. We even get a little bit of his performance on the Oprah show with Hey Mama, and you know, of course, there's so many different flashbacks, but also new bits of information that we get to see, and different scenes unfold between Kanye and his mother. And then, of course, we get the dramatic turn where, yes, they do showcase the 911 call where Kanye's mother passes away due to a heart attack, which it is heartbreaking, and I did feel for Kanye in this moment, because gosh, you could just tell that he was trying to grieve through it all, but a week afterwards he goes right back on tour, and it's like he's working his pain out through his art. But even then, in that moment, Coodie mentions their strained friendship was even more strained. So while Kanye is beginning to show signs of spiraling outward, we start to see Coodie's personal life develop too. This episode was probably the most time we've spent with Coodie and his family. Him and his wife had their first child together. Ivy is adorable, and I do love the moments we get with Coodie here because it was so different from what you come into this episode expecting. You expect it to just be all Kanye West, but it's a heavy dosage of Coodie and his family too. But then we fast forward really quickly to 2014, and guys, I'll be honest, there's a lot of time jumps here. It can be a little bit tough to track and deal with at the time, but that's not even one of the things that I don't think worked here. If anything, I think that there's almost too much to unpack for one episode, so it does leave me feeling a little overwhelmed as a viewer, and I was not able to really track a lot of the different dialogues, storylines. There was almost an overproduction at one point towards the end, but I do think a lot of it was intentional because we're trying to get a look into Kanye's life at this point, and Kanye's life is, well, it's a lot. Now, if you're curious about whether or not Kanye's marriage with Kim was explored here, to a degree it was, but it wasn't really touched upon enough to where there was its own segment. Instead, Coodie does tend to focus more so on the sporadic recording sessions that they have, and maybe when he gets flown out and invited to record, but also when Coodie himself attends listening sessions and different concerts. One of them in particular was the Life of Pablo listening session, I believe in 2016 in New York City. So some images I'm sure that if you're a fan of hip hop, you'll definitely notice, but seeing the video, being in the booth with him, it was actually pretty entertaining. I will say that there were some legends behind him too, so it was cool to see all of that unfold. But that's probably the last moment where I felt I could really resonate with this documentary, because we do dive more so into his new music and the way he's acting nowadays. And it's tough to really sit down, watch this, and feel connected to it in any degree. I mean, I do think when they, of course, talk about his Sunday service, I was reminiscing on when I thought that maybe he would actually turn that corner and hopefully get the proper help he needs and dive more so into that part of his life. And I'll be honest, full disclosure, I was actually able to attend one of his Sunday services down here in South Florida, and I served as a part of my church at that event, and it was a memorable event. I think it was a great event, and there were a lot of people who didn't know Jesus that hopefully came to know Jesus, and I was hoping that Kanye would continue that, but that wasn't the case. You can tell that Kanye was still struggling with mental health at that time, even though he was putting out music that was really God first and God centric. But he essentially turns another corner, because there's many different turns in this episode, where he, well, fraternizes with Trump and decides that he's gonna run for president. There's a lot of controversy surrounding pretty much everything he does in this time. And there's a conversation that he even has in the Dominican Republic with some realtors, and I don't know, it's his mind is, it's just all over the place, and it's really hard to keep track. And for me at this point, I think this is maybe going to connect better with fans of Kanye now, and I'm just not really a fan of Kanye West right now. Do I pray for him that he hopefully will get the help he needs? Absolutely. But I just can't tell you I really resonate and connect with Kanye West as a person and as an artist nowadays. And one thing that wasn't showcased here was his interview with TMZ, and there were some comments that he's made that they alluded to, but it was all heard via TV news commentary. But one speech that they did showcase, for the most part at least, was the speech he made in South Carolina, where he was talking about abortion and some sensitive issues, and of course it clearly affected him to a degree because he broke down on camera. And then they're in the car and he's agreeing with Tucker Carlson from Fox News, who I will tell you I will never agree with in my life. I just do not like him at all. But Kanye West, you know, he's in a different place right now, and I hope the best, and I hope that he'll kind of break out of this. But it is tough to see where he was in Act 1 to now. Even the creative process is different. Even though he's invited some legends to work with him on his ranch in Wyoming like Justin Bieber, it's the entire process itself that has wildly changed. It's not the same. And you know, things of course don't always have to stay the same for an artist, but it's just such a wild contrast from where we were at with Act 1 all the way to Act 3. But when it comes to the work itself in the episode, there were some incredible transitions here. I love how Coodie would talk about Kanye and then transition to his own life, and there was this cool mirror shot that he had where he was talking about his father and then it went to Coodie himself. But I do think that the direction here overall in the documentary was really strong. The editing was pretty much on point. There were some amazing found footage moments. I loved everything we got earlier in this documentary. I will tell you that this is probably my least favorite episode of the documentary, just because I found it hard to keep up. Not in a way that I couldn't tolerate it. It was just hard to resonate with this episode. It just never really sunk in well and sat well with me. Some of the things that we heard made me kind of shake my head, a little bit of, okay, this is a little much. So it's just a lot to really take in. There's a certain capacity you have to have for this episode, and I do think that fans, of course, of his work now will love this episode. But for fans who might not necessarily be as close with the artist and Kanye the person, this episode is going to be a little bit challenging for you to get into and sink your teeth into. But the way that Coodie ends this documentary episode and the documentary as a whole is beautiful. I love how Coodie ended thanking God for the journey, thanking God for I'd imagine for the chance to even document most of Kanye's life up to this point and put this documentary together. So it is so cool just to see how Coodie was really just giving it back to God. And I think that this episode is a testament to Coodie and how he is a good friend as well. He was really sticking with Kanye the whole way through. So the episode itself, while it is the most chaotic and frantic of the bunch, there are moments here that will appease some fans of Kanye now and maybe turn off some fans who are not fans of Kanye right now. Is going to be an interesting divide just to see how it sort of sits with people who are fans of hip-hop and people who are fans of Kanye. Do I think that there was probably much more footage to showcase and maybe another episode would have been necessary? Well, yeah, I do, but I think that it was a good time to end this documentary. And if anything, there were probably a lot of conversations that Coodie didn't want to showcase. He had to turn the camera off in some moments, so I definitely understand. And I think that when it comes to Kanye West's life now, he's involved in things that probably aren't the best to showcase, especially when it comes to his public feuds with Pete Davidson and what he's going through now with Kim Kardashian. It's not something you do want to showcase. You never want to air out someone's laundry like that, but at the same time, Kanye's making it public, so if anything, social media is documenting this part of his life for him. So there you have it, you guys. That's my real review of Act 3 Awakening. That's the final act of Genius, a Kanye trilogy on Netflix now. So go ahead and stream it, and when you do, go ahead and get loud down below in the comments and let me know exactly what you think of this episode. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or are you kind of in the middle? And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button and the big red button below and get subscribed to the channel, guys. We have so much more in store for you. I can't wait. We just dropped my review for the Batman. We're going to dive into some movies. I got some Netflix series we're going to talk about as well. So I can't wait to just go ahead and give you all this content. Alrighty, y'all. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.